The LOQED smart lock has just been added to Home Assistant in its latest release. In this video, we're going to be looking at the installation process of the smart lock, the configuration, and how we can connect it to Home Assistant. Big shout out to LOQED that have sponsored this video and have sent out the unit for me to install. Now let me tell you the story, because I've installed it not just once, but I had to install it 3 times. So stay tuned for the ride, and I hope that you will learn from my mistakes. And now let's roll the intro. This smart lock uses a keyless system. From the inside, you'll have a completely new handle and system on your frame, and from the outside, the only difference that you will notice, instead of a keyhole, you have this LED touchpad. This touchpad is useful in case you forget your phone at home and you can punch in a code and get in. But if you do have your phone with you and you leave a certain area, by default 500 meters, and you come back in that area, it checks the Bluetooth strength to understand if you're inside or outside, and that enables you to tap and open the door. My experience with that, it has been okay. The instructions actually say it can take up to 10 seconds, and I sort of have to admit that it did sort of get close to that. And it's all configurable in the app, and there's pros and cons of it. And I have to be honest, LOQED are very transparent about the potential issues with using it. We'll talk about it later in the video, don't worry. And there's a link in the description down below to check the current price in case time has moved on and prices have changed. So it uses its own cylinder, which you're going to need to install. You can put rechargeable batteries if you want in there too, but I'm just sticking some normal batteries for this video. If you've been following my other videos about door locks, you probably know about my latch system, but I'll touch on it very briefly. In my use case in particular, I need to lift the handle up before the locking system can engage. This system is actually quite common here in the UK. The quality of the hardware itself and all of their components is pretty good. One thing that I thought was missing from the box are written instructions. I know nowadays a lot of manufacturers are just relying on online and QR code scans, but I really prefer having physical instructions, especially when I'm doing something that's outside of my comfort zone, a DIY lock installation on my front door. Before you actually purchase this device, I would recommend you check the compatibility for the type of door. And if you're in any doubt, probably just reach out to support. They're actually very responsive and they're very good. On the website, it actually says that it will take up to 20 minutes to do the installation. I would really allocate a lot more time than that if you're not confident with this. And if this is your only way of coming in and out of the house, really allow enough time to get it all set up and to update the software and configure it properly and test it to the point that you find that you're happy with it. In my example, I have a garage door that I can sort of loop back in the house. So in case I do some mistake, I feel comfortable. So I gave it a go myself. But as I've talked about in the intro, I actually had to install it 3 times, so I'll explain why. And worst case, if you just don't want to touch a screwdriver, you can always get a pro to install it. Website says that's around 99 euros to do that. There are around 24 steps to get your door lock installed. Once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. And we're going to break these down in 3 sections. The first section is removing your hardware. The second section is installing the new hardware, and the third section is probably testing, calibrating, getting the app and the bridge up and running. The first thing to do is to remove your door handle with a hex key. In my example, I couldn't find any hole or any way to remove it, so I just skipped this step. Now, if you look at on the sideway of your door, there should be a screw, and that screw will unlock your cylinder so you can actually remove it. So just unscrew that and keep the screw somewhere safe. Now you can use your key to slot it inside the cylinder and then twist it a little bit out until you can pull it out. I have 2 screws internally, so to remove the whole frame, so the front and the back need to come off. At this point, check if you have an anti-plug thing in the keyhole. I think I do, I'm sure that it is. And the next step, it will ask you if it protrudes or not. So if it does protrude, you're going to need to add one of those spaces that are provided in the box to the outside module. So now you can take the outside module, because we're going to be installing it, to undo these little screws and take the mounting hole off. What you do is you take a front part of your frame, slide the actual outdoor unit cable in the frame, and then you take this little triangle shaped device and slot it back inside, put it in, and then screw again. Now you can put the outside part that's done, you can put it back, but be careful because you haven't screwed the front part, so it can actually still fall off. So just ensure that it doesn't, or put some sort of pillow or something. Now you can put the internal module onto the wall, so be careful to have it the right way around and look at the cable so it doesn't get tangled up. So screw that in, use your existing screws, the ones that you took off previously from your existing hardware. You can get the washers from the box, so it actually holds them up nicely. If you haven't removed the motor, you're going to need to remove the motor before, and then at this point you should be able to reinstall it in. Ensure that your module base is aligned so you can actually put those hex keys in and tighten up the screws. And you can twist the knob and you should hear this little clicking sound, click, 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 just to ensure that you've actually installed that properly. Now you're gonna have two cables to connect. One has a larger pin and one has the smaller one, so it's easy, but it is a little bit delicate, so be careful. Connect them up gently, and then you can hide the cables, for example, to the right when you put the cover back on. Then put all the batteries in. There are two batteries also at the bottom, in case you haven't noticed it. I might have not have noticed it immediately. It's not super obvious, but there are a ton of batteries basically that you need. And then you need to put your cover back on. The door is a little bit different on where the actual cylinder is. That's why you have different covers. So once you've got that all in, you'll slot it on. You need to put your handle in. So this is where actually the problem happened when the first time that I installed it. Let me give you the history right now. When I installed it the first time, I realized that I was missing this little metal bar because I couldn't understand how come I had different alignments. So I actually had two holes, and the outside door handle had one spindle bar, and the spindle bar internal was actually attached to my existing hardware. Now I actually went and contacted support and actually bought another spindle bar, but then all of this really just to realize that the actual bar itself, I could have just detached it from my existing bar and I could have reused that easily without having to go through all of this hassle. For some reason, I just didn't pick up that I should have actually done this. The second installation attempt was me actually trying to this device out in my patio door, and that actually worked quite well. I managed to get it all installed, and the only problem is you have to measure, and you need at least 3 centimeters each side of the door, because if not, your door is not going to close properly like you see in the images right now. The third time round, bear in mind that every time that I was doing an attempt, I was putting back the existing hardware because days went between one attempt to another because of all the things that were going on in my life. Eventually, we got it all installed with the third attempt. Once it's all installed, now you can plug in the bridge and you're ready to go in the app. Let's talk about the app experience, and later on, we're going to touch on how you can integrate this with Home Assistant. So if you're getting value out of this video, remember to like this video, comment in the section down below, and subscribe. The app experience. Now, when you look at these products, the app experience is crucial because you need to open and close your door at a bare minimum, but the hardware experience is also probably even more important than the software experience. And I was quite happy with the hardware experience. With the software experience, I think it's a little bit lackluster. It's pretty straightforward, it gets the job done. You've got a few options here and there to toggle. I would love to see a bit more of a rework in terms of the user interface to make it look even better. A couple of things when I actually installed the lock, I wasn't able to find the software update. There was a big blob of text to tell me actually where I needed to navigate to find where the software update was, which is great, but it would have been better like to have like some sort of banner up here on that page wherever I was and to tap on it direct or some sort of link. It's really important to get that software piece updated because that ensures that you're on the latest firmware in terms of security and everything. And also really have a read about the touch to connect feature. So the touch and connect feature has its pros and cons, but there is a lengthy article that you will find within the app which explains everything and the pros and cons and how you can experiment to see if it will work with you. So I would really recommend you to read it before you toggle it on and turn it on. But there are some cases where the door might think that you are outside when you're not. and that means if someone approaches the door and touches the door, then the door will open. Okay, so that's like one thing to consider. But I do appreciate the openness and puts really the decision into the hands of the consumers to toggle it on and off. It's your call to decide. I personally, if you're asking me, I would not toggle it on unless I was 100% sure it wouldn't trigger an opening door scenario. Sorry guys, I was literally editing this video, nearly done, but I actually forgot I didn't do the Home Assistant part, which I did promise at least twice, I think, if I remember correctly, in this video. So I got Home Assistant up to date to the latest version, and I followed the instructions on the screen, which were super simple, all to discover, bear in mind. And what you need to do is you need to create a token on the actual LOQED website, but Home Assistant links you to that. So you just click on that link and you punch in your email address and your password, and you create this token, give it a name. I've called it like Home Assistant, so I know what the token is for. And then this is a really long token. Just grab the token, copy it and paste it directly into your Home Assistant. It actually says that you are not going to be able to see the token again. So if you have to reinstall it again, you're going to have to create a new token. So once that is done, Home Assistant gives you the option to lock and unlock. You have one device, one entity, and really the attributes, there really isn't much to it. There isn't any battery level, state, or any other additional information. So it's quite bare bones, but because it just got released in Home Assistant, I'm sure there will be room for improvement. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to find out more, if you want to watch my video where I installed the LOQED Smart Lock, you can find it over here. This is Joe from Smart Home Makers. See you in the next one. Ciao.